Laura Wasser, welcome to the HelloPrenup podcast.
Thank you for having me, ladies.
Thank you so much for being here. So for the 4 people on earth that don't already know who you are, tell us a little bit about you.
So I'm a family law attorney, which is kind of a euphemism for a divorce lawyer. Our firm, Wasser, Cooperman and Mandels, does, I like to say, the only good thing we do is prenuptial agreements. We also do dissolutions and palimony and paternity cases, or what we call now as parentage cases. And I've been practicing for 30 years. I'm the managing partner of the firm. And about 5 years ago, we also created an online divorce website, which was acquired by divorce.com. So that's who I am, and I'm the chief of their evolution of divorce there, and now I'm an advisor at HelloPrenup.
We are so thrilled about that. So in addition to being a divorce lawyer, you also have a background in tech. Tell me a little bit about how you got interested in innovating in law with legal technology and what you're doing with it now.
So in 2013, I wrote a book called It Doesn't Have to Be That Way, because I grew up being the daughter of a family law attorney. And so when my friends in high school would have parents going through a divorce, they would often come to me and be like, what does this mean? And is it weird? And what do you think? And in my limited abilities as a teenager, I would explain it to them. When I then went to law school, I never thought that I would end up doing what my dad did. And then I got married before my last year of law school. And then I ended up getting divorced right after I took the bar. And because I had that background and because I was experiencing it, I thought that there should be a way to make things more accessible for young people, people that didn't maybe have the same kind of money as my dad's firm's Beverly Hills clients. So I wrote the book, and after that was really well received, as you both know, tech started really picking up, and people started dating online, and they started banking online, and they started shopping online. And I thought, what if there was a way to get divorced online? And so we created a company called itsovereasy.com, which was then acquired by divorce.com. And one of the things that we were always looking into was prenuptial agreements, because divorces would go a lot easier if people kind of educated themselves and talked about the terms of their marriage and financial arrangements before they got married. But we always had a really hard time kind of wrapping our heads around how you could do that online. Cut to HelloPrenup. You guys have kind of cracked the code and figured it out. And so I'm really excited to have been included in what you're doing, because I think it's super cool and super necessary.
Well, we're so thrilled to have you, Laura. Now you're an advisor. That's a dream come true for me. So tell me a little bit about when we were first talking about HelloPrenup and how it worked. What drew you to the platform and to joining us?
I think what really drew me to it, Julia, was the idea that people are being able to get online, read about what the law is in their state before they get married, think about whether they like that law, and they kind of want to opt into that plan. As you both know, so many people say, I don't want a contract governing my marriage. But the fact is, when you get married, the law of that state is the contract that governs your marriage. And a lot of people get married and they don't even know what that contract is. They don't even know what the terms are. For example, in California, where we're recording from, if you get married here and you live here, everything that you earn during the course of your marriage is community property. In other words, 50% yours and 50% your spouse's. We have very high child and spousal support guideline amounts. So if you don't know that and you get married without knowing that, then you're just kind of prey to whatever ends up happening. Whereas if you say, gee, I've been a family law attorney for 30 years, I make a lot of money, I've worked really hard, I'm not so sure that I want this person I'm marrying, although I may love him or her so much, getting half of everything I earn in my 31st year of practicing, then you adjust. And I think more than anything else, whether you have a prenup or not, understanding what the law is and having those conversations with your about-to-be spouse is so important, and generally leads people to stay married for longer.
We've actually conducted a study at HelloPrenup on married couples who have gotten a prenup. And this was people that haven't even used HelloPrenup and I think it was in the last 20-ish years. And actually, to your point, we realized that 87% of the couples that we talked to said that a prenup is the reason they're still married. and one of the reasons why they think that they are able to get through and weather storms as part of a marriage itself. What would you say to a couple who's considering a prenup right now and wants to open up that conversation to their partner, but they aren't really sure how to do it?
It depends if they're sober or not. I mean, I have a lot of men call and say, okay, really want to have this conversation, but I don't know how to do it. And I'm afraid she's going to be angry or whatever. And I say, look, here's the thing. If you're going to be married for a long time and you're going to have kids with this person, and you're going to be in the delivery room with her when she's having a baby, you need to be able to talk about difficult subjects. And if you're able to have a toolbox with the tools in it that you need to talk about difficult subjects, now when you're like all starry-eyed and in love and you're both like really looking forward to a wedding, you may then be able to parlay those tools into using them when things aren't good. And they will inevitably not be good at some point in your marriage. Not everybody, I mean, nobody has a perfect all the time marriage. There are going to be issues, whether it's financial issues, family issues, kid issues, whatever it is. If you're equipped to deal with them because you've had these conversations at the outset, you're more likely to get through it.
And historically, prenups have been looked at as a tool to protect wealth from an older man marrying a younger woman. That's no longer the case. How do you think prenups can protect women more particularly?
I speak with so many women about prenuptial agreements because, again, women are the most reluctant to broach that subject. Oh gosh, I don't want to do it. It's so not sexy. It's so not romantic. And we as women also really don't like to talk about money. So even if we are the breadwinner or the wealthier partner in a relationship, we don't want to go there because we don't want to embarrass him or emasculate him. Whereas what ends up happening, I see, is you get really resentful. And if you're not having these conversations, okay, I earn more now and that's fine, but maybe some more of the things that you could be doing as the person who maybe doesn't earn as much, those are the kind of conversations. You can't just shove it under the rug, shove it under the rug, shove it under the rug, because what does end up happening is he does get emasculated, whether you're talking about it or not, and you get really resentful. And I see a lot of marriages end because of that. If you have a prenuptial agreement, you're putting it right up there in the front. Here's what it is. You're not feeling resentful. And he's also not feeling like he's taking anything from you that otherwise wouldn't be his. Now, sometimes people need to tweak those agreements. If one person is going to be the stay-at-home parent and really, really be working from the home, but he or she isn't getting any of the benefits of the income that's coming in, that may need to change. And then you're equipped to have that conversation because you had one before you got married.
We know that women are less likely to initiate conversations about money. Why do you think that is? And how do you think women can approach the topic of a prenup with their future spouse if they're the ones that have more money or, the more moneyed spouse?
I think you really have to come to the table, maybe not as financial equals, but as equals in the relationship and be able to discuss things, broaching the subject, talking about money, because if you don't, there's always going to be that thing that's between you.
You represent a lot of celebrity clients and presumably do a lot of celebrity prenups. What differs between a celebrity prenup and a prenup for an everyday person?
Nothing. I mean, except for the celebrities. I mean, prenuptial agreements are not public. Divorces are public. So I've done a lot of prenuptial agreements for people that hopefully they'll never see the light of day. I think that they want to be private about things. As you know, you have to, at least in this state, there has to be full disclosure of assets. So a lot of celebrities make a lot of money, or maybe the perception is that they do, but they really don't. So when you disclose your assets and your debts, the person you're marrying is really going to see what they're in for. If you've got school debt or if you've got credit card debt or whatever it is, they're going to see that. That's going to give them an opportunity to opt in or not opt in. And they're also going to see how much you make and how much you've saved. And so I think maybe the celebrities have more of an interest in keeping things private than normal people do. So we do very hefty confidentiality sections in those agreements. But otherwise, just like with divorce, celebrities, I think there's some magazine that says like celebrities, they're just like us. They really are. They have the same fears. They have the same sadness. They have the same, trigger points of what is going to make or break a relationship and what they're going through when they're nervous about getting married. Particularly since it does seem like celebrities may get married more than once. And so that can be really heartbreaking, I think, if it's happened a lot and, oh gosh, this time I want to ask for a prenup. A lot of them have wealth already. They have reputations already, but really it's not any different.
Do you ever have clients who you highly recommend they get a prenup? They don't want one, and how do you handle that?
I say, okay, I think it's a mistake, but and then when they come back, I try very hard not to say I told you so. And they always say, you're really doing a good job at not saying I told you so. But yeah, I mean, look, people still are reluctant for whatever reason, or they have their own reasons and maybe they don't want to talk about them. I mean, remember, I'm only in it for a short period of time. And if they decide to get married without a prenup, they're probably not calling me to ask my opinion because they know what I'm going to say.
I love that you said there's not much difference between a celebrity who has all of the money and an everyday person. Their prenups are the same. They hold equal weight. At HelloPrenup, we see that spread. So we have celebrity net worth type clients, and we also have everyday people. Does your answer change about how to approach the conversation, whether or not you have all of the money or if you have no money? Do you think there's a difference between how those couples should communicate money together?
No, I really don't. And in fact, people that come to me and say, we don't even have any money, I say, okay, which is fine. But if one of you really starts to make a lot of money, are you going to feel the same way about it? And some of them do. Some of them say, we're starting out with nothing. We just got out of law school or business school. We're sitting on, orange crates instead of buying furniture, and whatever we make, we're in this together. And that's fine. But at least have the conversation where you're saying that and you both know and that's how you feel. Whereas I have a lot of people who have family wealth, which again is going to be separate property. But if you're living off of that family wealth, it could be used to pay for spousal or child support if you split up because it becomes part of your marital lifestyle. They need to know that. And they need to be able to say, look, my parents are giving me money on a monthly basis to pay for things, and that will help us enjoy our lifestyle. But I don't know that I want to continue asking them to pay that money if we get divorced. How do you feel about that? And I want to really stress, one of the things I love so much about HelloPrenup is it does open the field for people who otherwise might think, oh, I can't afford a prenup. That's going to be $25,000. Why would I spend the money that I otherwise want to spend on my first house down payment or our wedding or our honeymoon on a dumb prenup when we're in love and we're going to be married forever? So that accessibility, I think, is so important, and I love the idea of it. And even if you decide, okay, we're the people that just got out of business school, we want everything to be shared equally, we don't need a prenuptial agreement because we're fine with the law in our state, isn't it nice that you had that conversation? And it wasn't like anybody could ever say, well, if I had only known. You knew because we talked about it.
One of the things that HelloPrenup couples say they love the most about HelloPrenup is the process. So the process where they get to engage in the conversation around what their desires are for the prenup before they actually create the document or hire lawyers. What percentage of your couples or clients, rather, that come to you for a prenup have already had the conversation with their soon-to-be spouse about the actual terms of the prenup?
Not a lot, because they don't know anything about it at the beginning. So then I'll say to them, these are the things that you need to know about having a prenup. 1, you both need lawyers. 2, you both need to have full disclosure. 3, here's some of the things we touch on. It's going to have to do with what the earnings during the marriage are treated as. What kind of support limitations will there be? You can't really say anything about child support or child custody in these agreements. That'll be something you'll cross that bridge if and when you come to it. But really, once you lay out, once you educate them as to what would be covered, and then I say, I think you should go back. And again, if they're not people that are in the recovery program, I'll say, get a bottle of wine, pour it. When you're talking, have an open and earnest conversation about what your concerns are, why you feel this way. Doesn't mean you're going to get divorced. What you're talking about is what your marriage will look like. And a lot of times it covers other things that wouldn't even be in the agreement. Hey, I feel really strongly that when my parents are older, I don't want to put them in assisted living. I want them to come live with us. That's how we do it in my family. How do you feel about that? If you're seeing a look of horror on his face, you maybe need to address that. Listen, I was raised this religion and I really don't want to raise kids in any kind of a parochial setting, or I really do. How do you feel about that? I have a huge amount of student debt. I want to make sure that the money that I make each month, a portion of it's going to pay that down because it really stresses me out and I want to make sure we're doing that. Are you okay with that? I don't ever want to sleep on a futon again. We can go visit your fraternity brothers, but if we do that, we're going to stay in a hotel somewhere in whatever town they're living in, not in the frat house or whatever the next step of a frat house is with all of your friends. Those conversations the terms would never make it into a prenuptial agreement, but it certainly is something that's important. And it's important to know what terms that you can't include, like the cheating or, I had one guy that actually said to me, I'd like to put something in there about her losing the baby weight. And I'm like, what exactly would you like to put in there? Well, if she loses the baby weight within a certain period of time, she gets like a bonus. And I was like, I'm not putting that in there. So, it sounds terrible, but having that conversation with me before he had it with her probably saved their marriage. So it's good having, again, it's all about communication, I think.
What would you say to a couple who doesn't want to get a prenup because they feel like it is planning for divorce?
I would say that's absolutely not true. I would say it's not planning for divorce. I think it's putting terms in as to what could happen during your marriage. We have a lot of prenups, as you know, where there's things that happen during the marriage for the entire pendency of the marriage. And I would also say it will also keep both of you honest in being in the marriage, because you know what will happen if you do get divorced. And so it won't be such a scary, fearful unknown, which maybe some people like that that's a scary, fearful unknown. I don't know. But for the most part, I think going into things with your eyes open, educated, and with communication is going to be the best way of maintaining a good relationship.
How often do you see the parents as the ones who are dictating the need for the prenup?
Very often, particularly in first marriages. Usually my first call will be with the client and his or her parents. Then I'll say, I want to make it really clear, you, child, is the client. So if at any point you don't want mom or dad on the phone, or you want to just have this conversation, I serve you. And I am happy, because you have to know them for the rest of your life. I'm out as soon as you all sign the prenup. I'm happy to tell them that. They shouldn't be on this. You're a grown-up, you're getting married, that's fine. And a lot of times they say, I would really appreciate that. This is something, I'm doing this because it's what they want and the money comes from them. But the terms of this, I need to be able to, if I'm going to break away and start a family and with this person, I need to be able to do it on my own. And I can really help do that, because I can say, there's no privilege with you. I can't have you on the phone. This is my client. If they don't like it, they can go find another lawyer.
You were born and raised in Los Angeles. Do you often see your clients around?
I do. I mean, it's a big city, but I do see them around. And, having done this for a really long time, I have had a lot of clients. And for the most part, if it's a prenup situation, and when I first started practicing, prenups were very much like, mum's the word, you don't say anything. Now I'll be at a party and someone will be like, hey, it's Laura Wasser, she did our prenup. And I'm like, hi. People are way less concerned about it, it seems, nowadays. But divorce clients, it depends how close we were. You get very, very close with people in a very, very short period of time. And there's a lot of intimacies revealed, but it's only one way. So I'll see people and they'll be like, oh my God, I didn't even know you had kids. And I'm like, well, why would you? Or, I didn't know if you were straight or gay or married or, anything, because they're going through something terrible. So it's not the kind of a relationship where you're exchanging information. The best I can kind of hope for is that they'll say hello or wave or smile and just remember me as somebody that helped them through kind of a difficult situation. We don't hang out.
Do you ever go to their weddings when they get remarried?
I've been to a few weddings, yes. It's always a little ironic. I've also officiated a few weddings for clients, which is really nice and also really ironic, but everybody seems to get a kick out of it.
You've seen it all. So you've seen the prenup process. You've also litigated some top divorces. What is something that you wish every couple would think about at least once or have a conversation about?
Financial communications. I think that's one of the most difficult, not sexy topics to discuss, but I really think it's important. And I think even people that have prenups end up not discussing it. And the thing is, in a town like Southern California, where you have so much entertainment money, I mean, even in the past 5 or 6 years, so much has changed. We've had a pandemic, we've had a strike. People that were earning millions of dollars then didn't earn anything for a certain period of time. It's fast paced. It's a lot of bling, show what you have. A lot of people that are driving around in McLarens with Rolexes and all kinds of bling don't have any money. So really, if it's a person that you're intimate with, that's somebody that you should be having those conversations with in any kind of a relationship. And I think, if you're in it together, you're in it together, for better or for worse. And I think a lot of people don't realize that that's part of the contract. Part of the idea is, hey, I'm not doing so well right now. We're just coming out of a strike. I really want to work hard. I want to do better. And I think hopefully the person on the other end of that conversation is going to say, I get that and I appreciate your honesty and I'm here to support you.
Given that you are a divorce lawyer, what is your best relationship advice for someone who's gotten engaged, about to enter into marriage?
Own it. Own your shit. and also communicate about it. And I think, again, a lot of people get into this engagement period and they're very starry-eyed and they're planning the wedding and fitting their dress and picking the flowers and having their guest list in their registry. And it is an absolute fantasy period, which is great, especially again here in Southern California where it's all lights, camera, action. A lot of us, even if we're not in the entertainment industry, find ourselves to be the protagonists of our own reality show that's happening on a daily basis, which is fine, but just own it and like say, this is who I am and this is what I'm doing, and own it particularly with your fiance or boyfriend or girlfriend or spouse. Really that communication piece of it, but real communication, owning it and saying it and making the other person be honest about stuff too. That would be my piece of relationship advice as a divorce attorney who probably has no idea what it takes to have a good relationship. I don't know.
Do you have any tips for couples about when it comes to talking about money, like managing money as a couple?
I think it's really important, especially if there's a third party involved, like a business manager. I have couples that I say, and I have friends that have made their marriages work for a long period of time. Go in, if not every month, once a quarter. Meet with the business manager. Let him or her say that, you get the credit card statements every year that say, here's what you spend on food, here's what you spend on travel, here's what you spend on clothing. Look at those. I'm sure the business manager has a better build out of it. If you've done work on a home or whatever you're spending, to put away for your kid's 529 plan, look at those numbers together so you both understand it, so that if one person starts bitching about something, you can be like, yeah, well, you spend a lot on this. You're in it together. It's a partnership. Even if only one person is earning the money, the other one is helping manage it and spend it. And I would say really be partners in this. I have a very, very close couple that I've been friends with for 35 years, and they've stayed married. He is the breadwinner. She's raised their 3 kids. She's done all of the maintenance and rehabs on their houses and everything else. And they are very equal when it comes to doing things, because he knows he couldn't do what he does if she wasn't home doing what she does. There's a mutual level of respect there. There's a mutual level of what we can spend and where we can go and whatever. And it really works. And I think a big part of it's because of that. We make fun of them a lot, but it really is why it works.
What would you recommend for a couple who didn't get a prenup but wishes they did?
I don't know, because postnups are tough. They really are. That's a much harder thing to explain in terms of why we're doing this if we're not divorce planning. There's a different level of discovery that needs to happen. And I think, again, sorry to sound like a broken record, communication, going back to talking about it. And maybe even in some instances, I've had plenty, particularly of older women, come in and say, we've been married for 40 years. I have no idea what he earns. And I say, wait a minute, what we earn, because it's community property if you don't have a prenup. Okay, what we earn. She doesn't know. She may not even have her own credit cards. That still happens. Not as much anymore. When I first started practicing, it happened all the time. I don't know what we owe. I don't know what we spend. I don't write any of the checks or pay for anything, and I don't know anything. And what I would say to that couple is get educated. And that's not easy for somebody. You've been married for 40 years, all of a sudden your wife, because it usually his wife comes to you and says, I want to know everything right now. He'll be like, why do you want to know everything right now? Sometimes it takes actually getting divorced for these women, because they usually are, to find out what they have and what they spend and what there is, which is a shame. So go in by saying, I don't want to get divorced. I just want to take on a different role. I want to make this a more healthy relationship. If we've been married for a certain period of time, where at some point either our kids are going to leave and we'll be empty nesters, or you're going to retire, I want to be part of figuring out what our next step is and how to make it more fruitful for us. So that's what I would say to them, but it's not easy, especially if you've been in a pattern for a long period of time.
Yeah. Have you seen any horror stories where, the wife has no idea what money they have and then realizes there isn't much there?
Of course. It's LA. It happens all the time. And it is scary because there's a certain lifestyle. Hopefully they get to us before complete financial ruin has set in. But yeah, it's a bummer. And I will say, look, it's too bad that happened. And obviously he was trying to protect you from knowing about this. And sometimes they're borrowing from Peter to pay Paul or whatever. But the fact is, by closing your eyes for all this time, you were complicit. You were part of this too.
We kind of asked this question earlier, but how do you think prenups can be a tool for empowerment for women?
I think the first thing is if you know going into the marriage what is there, that can be very empowering. I also think if you know, I mean, a lot of prenuptial agreements give a certain amount per year. Maybe it's not 50% like community property would be, but I'll give you a percentage of what I earn, or I'll give you this much to put away every year. And again, this is big money. So if the person makes generally, I'm picking a number, $100,000 a year, okay? And if he says, I'm not going to put 50 away, but I'm going to give you 25,000 a year, okay, a quarter of my income. Now she starts having some money too, and she's able to either invest it, do what she does. I've had situations where one party's saving throughout the marriage and the other party's spending throughout the marriage, and all of a sudden the party that was saving has more money than the other party. That's an interesting twist. Usually what happens is they're playing parts together in what's happening. And a lot of it has to do with investment opportunities and getting into things together. And if you're doing that with your partner and it works out well, it can be really fun and rewarding. If it doesn't, then at least you're both in it together.
Have you ever seen couples try and hide money in the financial disclosure and just like kind of sweep it under the rug and pretend like it's not there?
I've seen people say, I'd rather not do a prenup than have to disclose everything. I really don't want him or her to know what I have going in. And so a lot of times if it's trust stuff and it's not a trust over which they have control, there can be big trust that nobody actually ever sees until later on, but it's still problematic. And now we have such trust structures that come through that, it can be difficult, but as long as they're not the person who's making, if it's discretionary and not their discretion, you don't necessarily have to. But yeah, I have seen people really not want to disclose. And then I say, if you don't want to disclose, maybe this isn't a marriage relationship for you.
What would you say to single parents that are entering into either their first marriage or their second marriage with a new partner?
I would say what all single parents already know, which is this isn't just you anymore. And it hasn't been ever since you brought this other person into the world. So whether you're getting married as a source of security and protection, or if you're getting married because you truly love the person, but you want to make sure you and your children or child are protected, you have to think about that other little being before you think about anybody else. And most of the time they do.
What advice do you have for couples where one or both of them are single parents and we can't contract a child support or anything directly related to the child of the prenup, but what are some creative things they can do as part of the prenup process?
Maybe agree to some of the money that gets put aside each month or quarter or year be in some kind of an account, 529 or whatever. Remember, step parents are never going to have to pay child support for a child that's not their legal child. So unless that new parent is going to adopt the child, they wouldn't have a legal responsibility. But if you're getting married and other opportunities that you may have for work or earning would be thwarted because of being married to this person, and you need to keep that in mind, because if the person goes away and they're your sole source of support, your kid could suffer. So some creative things are just really money that's coming to you, which you're going to say, it's not just for me, it's for my kid. I'm quitting my job because I'm going to be available to travel with you, and any free time I have is going to be with you and my child. Therefore, I need to make sure that I have this. And that can be very empowering, believe it or not, because you're saying like, this is what I need and this is what I'm asking for.
How do you think celebrity culture has shifted the public's perception of prenups in the recent years?
With anything, for whatever reason, once a celebrity does it, other people find it to be okay or normalized. So just like you have celebrities that are now vacationing together or having their kids' birthday parties together, celebrities that have prenups, even if they don't come out and say, hey, we're getting married, we signed a prenup, when they get divorced and people say there was a prenup, or we're hearing about it a lot more. It's not some like shady thing because your mail order bride had no money and you married her. We talk about prenups, it normalizes prenups, and believe it or not, it actually makes the regular people go, oh, well, they had a prenup, so I think I'm going to have a prenup too, because again, they're the protagonists of their own reality show, so they might as well have their prenup like famous person over there did. And I think it actually helps. I think celebrities almost always trickle down whatever behavior is coming, and in the years past, what celebrities have done and making their divorces more amicable and making prenups more normal has been helpful for those of us that practice this kind of law, I think.
3 years ago, a New York Times article said about 15% of all marriages had a prenup. And just about a year ago, there was a study that showed over 40% of millennials and Gen Zs who had been married or were planning to get married would have a prenup. What do you think about that?
I think that's great. I really do. I think that shows that what you're doing is working. I think people getting educated. I think that many more millennials and Gen Zs are experiencing what their parents may have experienced and want to do it better. And I think that they just go into things with their eyes wide open, knowing what to expect. So I really do think it's great. And what I would love to see a study of, although I don't know how they do it, is even those folks that didn't get prenups, did they discuss what the law is and then decide we don't need one because of this?
And why do you think it is that millennials and Gen Zs are so pro prenup?
I think it's because in a lot of ways, not every way, I think in a lot of ways they're smarter. They've learned about a lot of things in some ways because they go online and it's accessible to them and they can read about it. In some ways because it's less taboo than it used to be. And in some ways because if you look at the divorce statistics, although they may have gone up and down a couple of percentage points over the past 10 years, so many more people get divorced now than they did when we were kids, and even then more besides when our parents were kids, that because they know it's happening, why wouldn't they do something to make sure that when and if it does happen, they understand the process?
Is there anything that we didn't ask you about that's on your heart that you really want to talk about?
I don't think so. The one thing that I would say that I generally say in these things is particularly for young women, when you are in this kind of fantasy period and you're getting your dress and you're getting your venue, and we've all seen all the rom-com movies about like what a great time it is, saying to whomever is talking to you about a prenup, I don't want to do that. I don't want a contract for my marriage. You have it's not just a contract that you're getting married in that state, but you have a contract for the venue, and you've got a contract for your band, and you've got a contract for the woman who's making your dress or wherever you're buying it, your flowers, your caterer. You got a lot of contracts. So don't be above it when the most important contract is the contract that you're entering into that you may not even know the terms of, or where those terms may not be something you particularly want to agree to.
This was incredible. Thank you so much for your time today. This was this was the best. Amazing.